Hello everyone. I've previously done a bunch of videos about another game called Wartune, and I'm going to keep making those videos as well, but I'm also a big fan of the game Hearthstone, so I decided to make some content about that as well. And I thought I'd start out with making a couple of series about some constructed decks and talk about how to build them and general strategies and some gameplay and so on. Now, I'm definitely not an expert on Hearthstone. I've played for a few months, so doing this to learn some stuff myself, as well as perhaps share some information with others. So I'll probably say a couple of things that are wrong or not optimal, so I'm expecting some comments about that if I get some stuff wrong. Anyway, for the first series I'm going to talk about the Evil Face Hunter deck, and there's a few reasons for that. First of all, it's a pretty easy concept. Basically, you want to do as much damage as possible to your enemy, and you don't really care that much what your enemy does. And second, it's a very cheap deck to build. You don't use any epics or legendaries, and also a lot of the cards, well, not a lot, but some of the cards can be used quite effectively in other aggro decks, so they're not wasted cards. Things like Abusive Sergeant and the Iron Big Owl, Knife Juggler, and Mad Scientist, they are used in a lot of other decks, so they are sound investments. This is my version of the deck. It's a pretty basic one. You can make a couple of alterations, I suppose, but basically you want a very low mana cost cards. My version tops out at 3 mana with a Wolf Rider and Arcane Golem. And your goal is to, by turn, I guess if you have an average run of cards, by turn 6 or 7 your opponent should be dead. If you have a great draw, you can probably be done by turn 5, and once you start reaching turn 8 or 9, you will run out of steam and you will probably lose. In a few cases, like the mirror matchup, you can probably win anyway after turn 8 or 9, but you really shouldn't. If you haven't won by then, you probably won't. There are no card draws in this version. Well, actually, sorry, there's one card that can give you some draw, but let's go through the deck from the start. My first card, there are a couple of 1-drops. The Abusive Sergeant, this is a really great card. The Battle Cry gives you a minion +2 attack this turn, so you use this to buff one of your attackers. And also it's got 2 attack on its own, so it's a target that needs to be dealt with by your opponent, or it will, even though it's only got 1 health, you will cause some damage. Second 1-drop is the Dreaded Leopard Gnome, also a 2/1, but with a Death Rattle to deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So basically with this card, unless it gets silenced, you will deal at least 2 damage. And since it can be played on turn 1, usually you will be able to sneak in 1 or 2 hits before it dies. which means it'll do 4 or maybe 6 damage for 1 mana, which is great. My third 1-drop, I've chosen to include the Worgen Infiltrator, also 2-1 but with stealth. This is really useful against mage decks and so on, because it can't be killed until you attack with it, except for a few area of effect attacks. But this means you can play it on turn 1 and be pretty sure to get some damage out of it before it dies. Then there are a bunch of 2-drops. First one is the Glaive Suka. This is a really great card. Battle Cry, give a random friendly minion +1 attack. So basically you want to play one of these as a 1-drop on turn 1, followed by a Glaive Suka on turn 2, which will give your 1-drop 1 extra attack, and then you can attack with a weapon as well, so that's 5 damage on turn 2. If you have several minions on the board, make sure to play this so that the buff goes on one of the creatures that are able to attack. So play this before you play other creatures. Then we have the Explosive Trap. This is an excellent defensive skill as well as offensive, because it will deal damage to the enemy hero as well as all the enemies. If possible, you should try to not play this. Instead, you should get it activated by the Mad Scientist, so in which case it will be played for free. However, since you're playing short games, sometimes you will need to play it without the Mad Scientist. And then we have the only card draw, which is the Quick Shot. Deal 3 damage, and if your hand is empty, draw a card. I rarely, to be honest, get to activate the second part. You can use it to hit the opponent's face, and also to clear some annoying taunt creatures or other immediate threats. The Haunted Creeper, very effective and sticky minion. When it dies, it summons 2 1/1 spiders. It also has the benefit of being a beast, which will activate your kill command, so you can deal 5 damage instead of 3. This is also great in combination with the Knife Juggler, to deal 1 damage to a random enemy, which will basically, if you attack with this one, the Haunted Creeper, and it dies, will spawn 2 spiders, which will throw 2 knives using the Knife Juggler. And then these spiders can be buffed by your Abuser Sergeants to deal some damage, even though they are only 1/1 creatures. We then have Iron Beak Owl. I'm only running 1, I'm considering adding another one. And the main benefit here is obviously that the Battle Cry will silence an enemy minion. Specifically, you will sometimes need to remove a taunt creature. That's the most common use. So when your enemy plays the annoying Sludge Bencher on turn 5, you drop this one and then just go in for the win. It also has 2 attacks, so not completely useless, and another threat your opponent will have to deal with. The Knife Juggler, great card. You probably want to wait playing it until you can play it together with the creature, because the Juggler is a prime target and will often get killed pretty quickly. So coining this one out on turn 1 will usually lead it to it getting killed by a Frostbolt or a Warrior Axe. And then the Mad Scientist. It's a great card. Just keep doing damage to their opponent's face, and then they will eventually trade most of the time, and then you will get a free secret. We have another weapon. It's the Eagle Horn Bow, a 3 attack. Whenever a friendly secret is revealed, gain 1 durability. This is great in combination with Explosive Trap. However, since you're playing so short games, usually you won't really benefit from this. You can't play it until turn 3, and then you need to get your trap out, and then to get 1 extra turn of durability. And you probably, hopefully, you won't need that extra turn anyway, because your opponent will be dead. So I'm thinking about switching this one out. I'm not sure though. I have to do some tests. The Animal Companion, it's a very powerful hunter class card. For 3 mana you will summon 1 of 3 random beasts. You can summon a pig with 4 attack, 2 defense and charge. This is the one you want most of the time, because it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. You can also get a 4/4 creature with taunt, which will stop your opponent and also do 4 damage the turn after. The third creature is a 2/4 ape that will buff your other creatures. Probably the worst one, unless you have a packed board, which you can have sometimes. Then there's your kill command, deal 3 damage and 5 damage if you have a beast, which you should have at least some of the time. So try to combo this, and it's a good finisher. Once you get to turn 5 or 4 or 5, 6, perhaps your opponent's getting up some taunts, you can still do damage to his face to finish him off. Then there's the Unleash the Hounds. For each enemy minion, a 1/1 hound with charge. So this is especially useful against other Sui aggressive decks. You can basically fill the board and either trade if you really need, or just go for face. And these hounds are beasts, which will help you activate the kill command. So by turn 6 you can play both, which is a lot of damage most of the time. We then have another 3-drop. It's the Arcane Golem, 4/2 creature with charge. That's great. However, it comes with a drawback. The battle cry gives your opponent a mana crystal, so you probably don't want to play this until you have a solid grasp on the game. On turn 3 could be too soon. You don't want to give your opponent more mana to stop your progress, but once you reach turn 5 or 6, it hopefully won't matter anyway, so play this, buff it up, and then go for face. Finally you have the Wolf Rider, a 3/1 creature with charge. This is a great creature. It's pretty fragile though, and it will often get killed. Since it has 3 attack, it will be a priority target for your opponents, but it's a great card. You can also use it to trade if you need. And if you buff this with an Abusive Sergeant, you can kill off a Belcher and so on. And of course, as a hunter you also have the class ability, which deals 2 damage to your opponent's face for 2 mana. This is what makes the face hunter so effective, and you can use it to get those final few points of damage in once the opponent has his defenses up. Also a good way to spend mana if you draw bad. And you want to make sure to spend all your mana every turn, since you need to make as much damage as possible. But since we only have 1, 2, and 3 drops, that's usually not a problem. But the class ability can be used to fill up if you don't have anything useful to play. So that's the basic deck list. And as I said, the strategy is fill the board, attack your opponent, ignore what he's doing most of the time. There can be some exceptions. And basically try to kill him as soon as possible, the opponent. And as long as you keep playing creatures, your opponent often have to just react to you, which means you don't need to do any trades. You let your opponent do the trades for you. This also means that most of your creatures probably won't live for more than a couple of turns, and that is the strategy. Don't worry. Drop them, let them do some damage, and let them die, because you have a whole handful of new creatures, so you can keep doing damage. So I guess next part, well, I'll show you some gameplay. So until next time, see you in the next part.